Si comes tienes que lavar tu plato, Firulais. Anda, enjuágalo bien. No me gruñas. A ver, con la esponja eso. Y enjuaga bien que luego deja todo jabonoso. Eso así, muy bien, aunque de malas.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. We're going to kick it off with the heavyweight contest between unbeaten Moses Itauma, bright young star, and seasoned veteran Jermaine Franklin. I went with Moses by way of knockout. I think that people tend to forget, along with being a very heavy-handed puncher, Moses is frighteningly fast and agile for a fighter so young, a heavyweight, and that's what he put on display yesterday against the very durable Jermaine Franklin, who was at least able to go a few more rounds with Moses than his previous opponent did. Dillian White fight ended in the first round. This one ended in the fifth. 5 rounds of sheer dominance from the unbeaten up-and-comer Moses Itauma, fighting out of the southpaw stance, leading with the right in order to set up the left. The right hand of Moses Itauma ever present from the opening stanza. Not just shooting it in order to land it, but pawing with the jab, probing with the jab, reminding Jermaine Franklin, you make a wrong move, there's going to be a backhand behind this thing that follows. Controlling the distance at which the fight was being fought, in effect, getting respect from Jermaine Franklin. All by being creative with his lead, acting not just as a setup punch, but a decoy, a diversion, a distraction. I also noticed a good number of backhands that Moses Itauma was able to land to Jermaine Franklin's midsection. He wasn't just headhunting. From the opening stanza, he was able to get in with some hard punches downstairs. Body shots. The beauty of body punches is that even if the guy can take the shot in the moment, they wear a fighter down as the fight progresses, so it's money in the bank for later on. And not only that, throwing body punches, you keep the guy guessing. He doesn't really know what you're gonna throw next. He doesn't know if he should defend the head or the body. It makes him second-guess himself and leaves him open for other punches, being creative with your offense. These weren't hooks to the body or uppercuts to the body, they were stabs. Straight punches to the body made possible by Moses Itauma's agility. I told you, this guy, he can move. He's light on his feet, fights on the balls of them. Bounces into striking distance, gets in with a stab to the body, bounces back out before Jermaine can respond, before Jermaine's counterpunch can land. There's not a lot of guys in the heavyweight division with the kind of mobility that Moses Itauma exhibits. A bit of footwork and being agile can go a long way in the land of the lumbering lummoxes, the heavyweights. It also helps that Moses is frighteningly fast. This guy's got the kind of hand speed you see from a light heavyweight or a cruiser. Many times have you heard me say in previous videos that a bit of hand speed in the heavyweight division, where most guys really aren't that fast, that goes a long way also. Being able to get in with shots when the opponent isn't ready. The punches that they don't see coming, those are the ones that do the most damage. Fast. Guy's fucking fast. Jermaine Franklin, God bless him, I don't remember him landing a punch the entirety of that fight. I remember him trying to. Moses will crack him hard with a backhand, and Jermaine Franklin would immediately respond with big punches of his own, looping shots that didn't find the target. Punches that didn't land. For Jermaine Franklin's best efforts to try and make this a contest, it was mostly one-way traffic. Gets knocked down in the third round off a chopping right hand to the temple, gets finished in the fifth off a clean uppercut. Mammoth of an uppercut that stopped him in his tracks, and a right hand that followed just sort of nudged him in the right direction. To the canvas, it was a dominant display from Moses Itauma, who I picked to win by knockout. Admittedly, I thought the fight might go a little longer, at least into the 8th or the 9th. Moses stopped him in 5. That's impressive, because this guy's never been stopped. Been in there with AJ, he's been in there with Dillian. That's impressive, because this guy's never been stopped. So what's next for Moses Itauma, who is holding some version of a WBA trinket, a WBA title, post-fight? I think it's about time for the Murat Gassiev fight. Former unified cruiserweight champion Murat Gassiev turned heavyweight contender, who's been at the weight for some years now and some fights. He's been calling out Moses. Says that he's willing to come to the UK to fight him. When you consider how long Murat Gassiev has been on the outskirts, on the fringe, and away from the mainstream audience, of course he's willing to fight in the UK. That's where all the money is. Murat Gassiev is the WBA's regular champion, behind Alexander Usyk, who holds the full version of that title. Usyk beat Murat Gassiev years ago in the World Boxing Super Series. Years later, Moses Itauma might beat him. Via the WBA, there is a precedent for Murat and Moses to fight because Murat's got the regular title and Moses is currently ranked at number 1. What? Now, how do I imagine that fight is going to look? Not much better than yesterday's fight because Murat Gassiev, while a dangerous puncher within close quarters, he's got cement blocks for feet. So he's going to struggle to get within striking distance of Moses, the same as Jermaine did. Never been knocked out, the same as Jermaine was before yesterday. He's never been stopped, Murat Gassiev, but there is a first time for everything. In an enclosed space, Murat Gassiev is very much a dangerous fighter. If you want to sit there in the pocket and trade punches with him, you'll fast find out that's a bad idea. The saving grace for Moses is that he's light on his feet. He's agile and very creative with his lead.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
Moses might be a little bit taller and a little bit longer than Murat Gassiev, who's portly for a heavyweight. Not very big, stocky, and solid, though not having much ring coverage. It would be quite the assignment for the slow-footed Murat Gassiev to get close enough to Moses to get in with a counter hook like the one he landed on Kubrat Pulev that stopped him. Much more difficult assignment if you're trying to do that to Moses, that I figure would control the fight with his lead the same way he did yesterday, and he'd be the first to stop Gassiev.
I think he'd knock him out.
But Gassiev claims he wants to fight, says he's willing to travel, so give him what he wants. Gassiev is not the kind of guy you gotta break the piggy bank to get him in the ring, so it's not a difficult fight to make. Not political.
No promotional politics to worry about.
Because Moses Itauma took minimal damage yesterday, I would like to see him back in the ring over the summer months in, say, July or August, then maybe one more time before this year is out, because the guy's only 13, 14-0. He should be fighting more often.
He's made for television.
Everything you want to see in an unbeaten up-and-comer, everything you want to see in a heavyweight, Moses has. So far, so good as he steps up in competition. Congratulations to him. The prediction stuck. I picked him to win by way of knockout. And he did, and so did the reigning WBC junior middleweight champion Sebastian Fundora. Was able to dispatch former unified welterweight champion Keith Thurman in about 6 rounds in a fight that Keith was never in. Now, I did pick Sebastian to stop Keith in the later rounds, say 8 or 9, maybe 10. It happened much sooner than that, what I expected to see.
It happened much sooner than that. Keith started off this fight fighting the wrong fight, circling away from Sebastian Fundora, trying to create space between him and Sebastian, which isn't a good idea. This guy's too tall and too long for you to be doing that. He doesn't need to be close to you to touch you. So if you create distance between you and him,
he can get full extension on his jab, touch you with that, all before he's within striking distance of your punches. Step into that jab, bring the backhands over. Not an encouraging omen for Keith Thurman at the start of the fight that Sebastian was touching him with as many jabs as he was, because if he's landing all those jabs in the first and the second and the third round, imagine how many more times he's going to land once Keith is tired and the pace starts to catch up to him. This is a 37-year-old fighter on 37-year-old legs who before yesterday hadn't fought in over a year.
Sebastian very effective with his lead at the start of the fight, very prolific with his lead, threw a lot of jabs.
Jab that he's been developing for at least the last 3 or 4 fights, I want to say. Sebastian, at least when I first saw him, wasn't much of a jabber, but after getting knocked out by Brian Mendoza, you saw that he made a conscious effort to use his natural gifts. Use your height, because you have it. Use your length. Use your fucking jab.
Don't just give up your height to these short guys.
No, he isn't. More effective with his lead. Sebastian Fundora, the last 3 or 4 fights, has made himself an increasingly difficult fighter to get to.
Difficult for Thurman, often off balance yesterday, trying for big looping punches over the top, constantly running into Sebastian's lead.
When he wasn't running from Sebastian. In the build-up of it, Mr. Boxing Moves 486, one of the regulars here on the channel, told me, I predict Keith Thurman will win the fight. Why? I watched Fundora's last fight and I watched Keith's last fight, and based on what I saw, Keith has pretty good punching power.
Keith's got pretty good punching power at junior middle. You let him knocking out Brock Jarvis convince you that he has good punching power.
Fundora has a good jab, but it's not a snappy jab. All Keith has to do is use angles when throwing punches that will allow him to get closer to compensate for the reach.
Tell you what, Sebastian's jab looked pretty snappy yesterday.
Pretty snazzy. Mr. Boxing Moves continued. I think Keith will try to stay on the man's body instead of focusing on his head, get him to drop his guard.
Did anybody see Keith throw a body punch? No, because he was never close enough to Sebastian to throw to the body.
The only thing Keith has to worry about is don't back out in a straight line. I've got Keith by 8th round TKO. I see Keith winning on points, but realistically, I don't think the fight goes the distance. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's my professional opinion. Winner? Keith Thurman. Wrong! Fucking wrong. Because what Mr. Boxing Moves is really doing is trying to hang on to the fighter that Keith Thurman was so many years ago. So many years later, there was absolutely no reason to believe that Keith Thurman could win this fight.
Zero.
He said that all Keith Thurman had to do was use angles to get around the long jab of Sebastian Fundora. You must be thinking about some other Keith Thurman. Because in order to use angles to get around the long jab of Fundora, Keith would have had to have been coming forward, not moving lateral, not moving backwards, and I said it on repeat. Keith ain't no come-forward fighter. He ain't no pressure guy.
What you were relying on for a Keith Thurman win was something Keith Thurman doesn't do.
Something he's never done, because the very best version of Keith Thurman moves lateral, tries to walk his opponent into punches. You must have been thinking of some other Keith Thurman, or worse, crossing your fingers and clenching your asshole, hoping for the best. Some people got sentimentality when it comes to Keith Thurman because he represents a better time for the PBC. He was one of their flagship fighters, arguably the poster child for the PBC upon their inception.
And I think what people want to believe is that the PBC guys were elite, even if they chose to stay amongst themselves within that biosphere. I think that's what motivated Mr. Boxing Moves' prediction. He can't accept that Keith Thurman sucks.
Whoa.
No, I'm not putting up with nobody's bullshit, nobody's sentimentality. The fucking guy sucks, okay? You got it?
The good fighters, the really good ones, don't have to navigate their careers the way that Keith has navigated his, being so careful, so cautious. And the only reason he took that risk yesterday is because he didn't have a choice. He's been out of action so long, the bills must be piling up. That Keith Thurman would have took on a dangerous fight only accents how desperate he's become.
Because he doesn't normally take on dangerous fights.
What else? People romanticize boxing a little bit too much. They want it to be more subtle and more nuanced than it actually is, when most of the time, size matters.
Most of the time it does.
Most of the time. But you see fighters like Sugar Ray Leonard overcoming the height and length of a Tommy Hearns. You see legendary fighters like Alexander Usyk overcoming size and strength. And you get to thinking that's what's normal. It's not.
Even worse, you get to thinking that guys like Keith Thurman are cut from the same cloth as them. He's not.
What really fries my fucking vegetables is no matter how many times I tell you guys about Keith Thurman and other PBC fighters, you don't want to fucking listen. Coming to me with these fucking fantasies about Keith cutting angles and he's gonna go to the body. He was never close enough to go there because he did what I told you he was gonna do.
I fucking told you.
It's fucking fantasies is what it is. Fucking fantasies. You may as well be telling me you're gonna get visited by the Tooth Fairy tomorrow.
But whoever the fuck that referee was, don't hire him for fucking main event shit ever again, man. Real talk. Do you remember Eric Morales versus Marcos Maidana? Do you remember how many times people fought with broken orbital bones? It's just not even broken, man. Never got dropped in the whole fight. I'm getting caught on the back end of punches. The referee told me in the locker room, show me something. Move your feet, duck your head. I won't stop the fight. I'm using my legs. I'm getting caught on the back end. I wasn't buckled. He just jumped in like a white rabbit, man. So them little hoppy referees, they're not made for main event boxing. The fight was getting fun. The people were standing on their feet. We was just getting into the grind, you know? And he was getting really comfortable swinging wide, swinging big, swinging wide. Because he's young, because he trains hard, he put that press. Because he's a volume puncher. He put that press, and the referee reacted to that, you know? So Fondora's preparation, his fight style, it all ended up planning out for him. But as an OG, man, 4 more minutes, it would have been a lot of fun, I promise you. 4 more minutes, and he could have made a mistake right in front of me, man. I was waiting for it. I knew it was going to be one of these kind of tough fights against a young champion, and I had that long-term vision, but the ref didn't let me get there, man. So it was unfortunate, but I'm grateful. You know, I'm okay. I'm able to talk to you guys. I don't need to be in the hospital. Everything is what it is.
was referee Thomas Taylor, officiating the action as the third man in the ring, and as you can see, Keith Thurman was none too pleased with his call in the 6th round, waving the fight off. To some extent, to some degree, I actually agree with Keith.
Was the fight stopped too early? Should he have been allowed to go on?
I don't think Keith was about to pull a rabbit out of a hat. I don't think he was going to turn it all around with a home run swing, a big punch. But I do think he had more left in the tank, and because he was still moving and still bobbing and weaving and slipping and rolling, because he was still punching, even though he was losing, I do feel like the contest could have been allowed to go on.
Should it?
Not necessarily. Not if you know your boxing and you know it wasn't at all likely that Keith would be able to turn it around.
Should it have been allowed to go on? Perhaps not, but it could have.
The woulda, coulda, shoulda, Keith. You can slap a Bugatti sticker on a Buick and it's still a Buick. You can say, if you would have been given a bit more time, maybe you would have been able to turn things around. You could have, but woulda, coulda, shoulda.
If my aunt had a dick, she'd be quite the prick.
I don't think it was going to get better for Keith because as the fight wears on, you're spending more and more of your energy reserves just moving around and trying to survive at 37 years old, a year out from your last fight. You're not going to get more energy. You're not going to get better as the fight progresses. Things are only going to get worse. So I think even if the contest had been allowed to go on, Keith would have still got knocked out, probably worse.
The loss would have been harder to recover from because he would have went down harder. I think that Thomas Taylor actually saved what remains of Keith Thurman's boxing career, not allowing him to take more punishment.
This was a fun build-up. This was a great fight. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and just keep looking forward to what I have to bring, man. 37 years old. I got some more fight left in me, especially because they stopped it early, baby. You see me, I'm here, I'm talking, I'm not stuttering, and I'm gonna go back into the gym. I might have to go join this boy in the mountains. I might have to train in the mountains next time. You know what I'm saying? Because the conditioning was a very strong point, I could tell, but he was, you know, the mistakes were there. I didn't get to capitalize it early enough. The fight got stopped, man, but I love you. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you, God. Thank you to everybody who supported me, man. Everybody that helped me in this camp. God bless my wife, my children. Just, you know, and I'm going to do better next time, man. Congratulations to a tremendous champion, Sebastian Fondora.
All right, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for Keith one-time Thurman.
Now, what exactly does Keith Thurman have left to give the sport of boxing given the display that he put on yesterday? Not much, in my opinion. You can put him in there with a Charles Conwell or in a Boss Baru, and he might do a bit better, but he'll still lose because all these years that he's been sparsely active, he's only been delaying the inevitable.
If Errol would have got his hands on him, if Terrence would have got their hands on him, they would have beat him too. They would have knocked him out too. Now as a junior middle, you tell me, what junior middleweight do you think he beats?
Says he's not going to retire, and he's going to keep fighting. I don't know against who.
And for what money?
Yesterday's fight was billed as a pay-per-view, though I think it should not have been, and I do not imagine that it's going to put up robust numbers if numbers even come out.
They won't.
Keith is caught between a rock and a hard place, not being able to make welterweight at his age, though having a welterweight's frame, competing as a junior middle, there's not a lot of junior middles I can think of that he would beat.
But he says he's going to keep fighting. You can make of that what you will.